Welcome back, my little Filmerdudes. This is gonna be part 2, this is gonna be part 2 of this is gonna be part 2 of my Extraordinary Season 2 ending breakdown and explain videos. In the first one, I explained where the heck Jen is, and in part 2, I'm gonna explain to you what I think her power is going to be. So if you have not seen Seasons 1 or Season 2 of Extraordinary, please go watch them on Hulu. This is going to be chock full of spoilies. And since I warned you, I will not be apologetic. Oh, you have 5 minutes to get out of here. 5, 4, 3, 2, let's go. So like I said, in part 1, you might want to go see part 1 because part 1 very much explains how we get here and why she has a power blockage still in part 3. And it's going to be way too long to explain here, and plus I want you to go watch that video. So go do that, come back here. But basically, Jen will not have any powers in season 3. She is going to get her powers by the end of season 3. By episode 8, or at least the end of episode 8, we will figure out what her powers are going to be. Probably all the way in episode 8 now that I think about it. So let me start out by telling you what her powers are not. I saw many Reddit threads, forums? Reddit forums things that suggested that Jen has had her power the whole time, and whatever that power may end up being, we don't know, but she's just had it the whole time. And you can put in a power and try to explain what it is, but I don't think that's true in any sense whatsoever. Because number one, she can't have a power this whole time because it completely contradicts the whole point of the series. It's extraordinary, and what's the whole ironic bit of extraordinary is that Jen is the only one to not have any powers. That's extraordinary. Everybody has an ability, everybody has a power, except for Jen. That's the odd thing about it. She's the technically normal one. That's not normal. So if she always had a power this whole time, it would be the writers and creators grabbing us by the collar, bringing us in, spitting on our face and saying, we wasted your time. And that's not fun. There's one power out there that everyone says that it is, and I want to say, no, it's not. The Reddit forums out there that said that her power might be amplifying and nullifying the powers of other individuals. The evidence, though good, are also all very much stretches, and most of the situations in which they pick to explain that, oh, this is Jen using her power, is just Jen being a friend. That's not a superpower.
We'll use the power of friendship. Yo, that pinch is crazy.
There's really no real evidence that would suggest that her power is this. We're just gonna say it's not true. Plus, after not having a power for so long, for your power to make other people's powers better and cooler, I'm gonna take myself out, man. What a lame power in that context. Waiting to get your cool power and your powers to make other people cooler. Lame. This is why I have a thing called narrative logic. Think! So what is her power? Her power, it has to be cool. It has to pay off waiting for so long. And it has to fill big shoes. And there's really only one power out there in the Power Realm universe that would fit this role, and that power is power mimicry. That, sir, is cheating! No, not technically. It's not cheating if we define the power subtype and if we define the power limitations. So let's explain the base power of power mimicry. And I can explain this to you because I grew up reading a ton of comics, and I actually went through as a child. And when I mean child, I mean as a teenager, and a couple years ago, and maybe in a couple weeks ago actually. I browsed the superpower listing, the superpower DBs, just all of the things. I've studied everything for years now, and I am a professor in this, so I am going to explain to you with my professionality. So what is the base power? The base power is the ability to mimic or copy the powers of others. Very simple. A couple examples are Rogue from the X-Men, Peter Petrelli from NBC's Heroes, or Kirby. We will revisit those, but we are going to go over the subtypes of those powers and then talk about the examples of each. We kind of have 6, 7, 8 subtypes to go over. But we're not gonna think about how many, we're just gonna think about that. So subtype number 1 is Shapeshift Mimicry, or also Morph Mimicry. Two classic examples are Ditto from Pokemon and Morph from X-Men, and Ditto can actually shapeshift into the appearance of other Pokemon and copy their moves. However, Ditto is only as powerful as the level Ditto that Ditto is. Ditto cannot copy the power level of the Pokemon that he copies. So if he's a level 1 Ditto, it doesn't matter if he's copying the powers of a level over 9,000? Is that how that works? Either way, Ditto has limitations. The same for Morph. Morph is able to shapeshift into other mutants, and he's actually able to copy their powers to a certain level. Powers that he copies are nowhere near the powers of the mutants from which he copies. For example, if he were to shapeshift into Psylocke, he would be able to use Psylocke's psionic blade, but it wouldn't be as strong as her blade or wouldn't hold up against her blade, but it would be quite effective. The same goes for copying Wolverine's adamantium claws. He could copy those claws, but those claws wouldn't actually be adamantium, and nor would they be as strong as said adamantium. And both Ditto and Morph need to see those powers in order to be able to copy those powers as well. The second subtype is Absorption, usually by touch. Like I mentioned earlier, Rogue from X-Men is our classic power absorption mimic. She is also the classic one to go to when it comes to limitations on powers. She has the ability to absorb the powers and abilities and memories of other mutants, superheroes, and skills, even those from other humans. And this is a passive power, meaning that it's always on. She cannot turn her power off. The longer she touches, the more she absorbs, and that could mean accidentally killing them. She specifically doesn't usually keep what she absorbs. However, if she holds on for long enough, parts of those can become permanent within her. For example, Rogue once held on to Captain Marvel for very long, resulting in a 5-year coma for Carol Danvers, and permanent Captain Marvel powers of flight, vulnerability, and strength. Another good example of this is Arthur Petrelli from NBC's Heroes. This guy is basically a male version of Rogue who could control his powers. He also is able to keep the abilities that he stole. Another difference between him and Rogue is that he does not kill his individuals whenever he absorbs their powers. He just straight up steals their powers. The third subtype is Proximity. All examples are coming from the X-Men. The first one is Sync. He can sync up his aura with other superheroes around him, and once he does, he is able to copy their abilities. And he is not necessarily limited to the power level of the hero. He is able to take those abilities and develop them further if he wants to. And the reason why he's able to do this is because he syncs up with the individual entirely, so he even syncs up with their potential. The second one is Hope Summers, and she is basically the exact same thing as Sync. She is able to copy the powers of other mutants and other superheroes around her. And the thing with her is that she has an instant understanding of these powers. As soon as she copies some powers, she knows exactly how to use them, and just like Sync, she is able to develop them even further on her own. The last and third example is Mimic, also from X-Men. This guy was created by Stan Lee and comic book artist Werner Roth, and his first appearance was actually in X-Men 19, and you can probably consider this guy as the OG copycat, because he appeared in the X-Men number 19 in April 1966. He first appeared as a villain and then became a hero and then joined X-Men for a brief time, but he is exactly like the rest. He can copy the powers of those around him. The fourth type is Empathic Mimicry, and we really only have one example to my knowledge, and that example is Peter Petrelli from Heroes. At first, it seemed that this guy could copy the powers of those around him, which in essence, yes, but his power is empathic mimicry, meaning he has to have an emotional empathic connection with the individual that he is copying, whether they're far away or they're present. As long as he feels that connection with them, he is able to copy their abilities and keep their abilities. If there's no empathic connection, he cannot copy those powers, which is why he can't copy Sylar's powers in the show. Peter's arc and powers get a little complicated and it gets into spoiler territory for later on in the seasons if you've not seen those, so I'm not gonna say anything on that. It's just an amazing show and you should just watch it. The next subtype on the list is Intuitive Aptitude. Now this one technically isn't a real copycat subtype, but it kind of is. There's only one example, the original example, Sylar from Heroes. Now this ability, so Intuitive Aptitude is the ability to understand how something works by just looking at the process thereof. At base levels, he uses this on objects, on people, and behavior. You can understand why people are acting the way that they're acting. If your TV is broken, you can look at the inner inner workings and be like, okay, it's intuitive aptitude. You are intuitively figuring things out and figuring out how things work. Except Siler took this one level further and he said, what if I use my ability to understand how powers work? And it worked, and it's gruesome. This man cuts the heads open of other powers, and he looks at their brain to study how the brain patterns work, and he gains their ability because he then is able to understand how that ability works in said brain, and therefore he unlocks that power. And yes, the victim does die. The sixth one is mimicry via sucking?
That's what she said. No time. But she did. No time!
Kidding, via eating. And there's actually two subtypes of this subtype. The first one is consumption shapeshifting, and the second one is digestive assimilation. Consumption shapeshifting is you take on the appearance and the abilities of others or things that you consume. This doesn't necessarily always include the powers, but it always includes shapeshifting of some kind. Some very good examples are Kirby, who we all know as the lovable pink puffball. He consumes his targets and takes on a variation of both their powers, and it changes his appearance. Another example are the cybugs from Wreck-It Ralph. These things can take on the appearance and form the abilities based on the things that they eat, and it's terrifying. And the second subtype is digestive assimilation, and the only example I know is Fukuro from Fairy Tail. He is able to copy the powers, skills, and memories of the other mages that he consumes. I've only seen the first episode of Fairy Tail, but now that I know this guy exists, I'm going to go watch the rest of the season. Or no, just the rest of the show. So now that we have defined all of the types, necessarily not all of them, but the most common ones, what will Jen's power be? I do believe it's going to be mimicry. I think it's either going to be via touch or via empathy. Honestly, it's a very good and simple limitation to this power. Instead of being able to copy the powers of other people around them, she has to touch them. And to what extent can she copy only while she's touching? Is it copying or is it absorbing completely? Can she keep all of the powers she copies, or can she go one at a time? These are all things that the writers are going to have to figure out. So what about empathy? I strongly think it's going to be empathy more than touch, because Ian, Jen's stepfather, had a lot of focus this season, especially on the development of his powers of empathy during season 2. So I think that might have been just the tiniest little bit of a hint for all of us super sleuths. In any case, that's what I have for you. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about these. Go ahead, check out part 1 if you still haven't. And you've watched the whole thing and you're like, what the heck is extraordinary? Go watch it on Hulu. It's there. I want season 3, please. So do me a favor and go watch it. Check out my channel, subscribe if you want to see other videos, like this video if you liked it, and share your thoughts. My social media links are in the description below, and I shall see you next time. You've just been Montified.